Hart, my paternal grandmother, is the wife of a former lieutenant colonel and an archaeologist with a captivating passion for history. During my younger years, she and I would often sit together dreaming of places like Egypt, Israel, and Palestine. Grammy, as she is fondly known, was never intimidated by other cultures, but rather welcomed them with open arms, always eager to find beauty and goodness in everything she encountered. Grammy used loving others as a form of worship, glorifying God by loving his most prized creation to the best of her abilities. During our moments together, she installed in me a love of history, travel, other cultures, and the understanding that we as human beings have more in common than we do different. While Grammy was cultivating my passion for people, my maternal grandmother, Nana, was teaching me to have confidence in my own unique voice. As her oldest grandchild, female grandchild, she and I would spend countless hours together sewing and talking. Nana never shied away from engaging me in hard conversations, but always pushed me to ask the tough questions. She always validated my right to an opinion, no matter how young I was, and told me that I could do anything I set my mind to, as long as my motivation was to glorify God. During these moments together, my grandmothers formed in me a passion for women's education, and it began to cultivate a belief that I now hold very dear. Education is a basic human right. Every person deserves the opportunity to learn and to think for themselves. Yet, globally, a shocking 130 million girls between the ages of 6 and 17 will not enter a classroom this year. 17 million of those girls will never enter a classroom in their lifetime. That's 17 million girls who will never learn the alphabet, much less learn to read or write. Instead, many of these girls will be sold into human trafficking or forced into child marriages. Per day, over 41,000 girls under the age of 18 are forced into marriages. As a woman who highly values her education, this is shocking to me and really rocks me to the core. 49.6% of our world's population is female. And by educating them, we ensure that humanity will continue to progress. As Malala Yousafzai, a known advocate for women's education, says, all it takes is one child, one teacher, one book, and one pen to change the world. In August, I began my capstone speech with the bold claim that we do not need to help under-resourced women find their voice, we need to teach them how to use it. God advocates for those who are overlooked, and as his ambassadors to the broken world, so should we. In the beginning of my capstone experience, I feared I would struggle to find local ways to pursue my passion for advocating for women's education, so I partnered with a nonprofit organization called Get Hope Global and booked a ticket to Asia. Hope's mission is to provide biblically based curriculums and microfinance opportunities to encourage, equip, and empower women and at-risk girls. I had the amazing privilege of coming alongside Julie Melton and Beth Ratzliff, who are both here, as well as Jim Weber from Global Connections International, as they went to Cambodia to serve the women there. When asked to describe my experience in Cambodia, I find it really hard to find words that do it justice. So instead, I tell stories. So I would like to tell you a story. In 1975, the Khmer Rouge invaded Phnom Penh, Cambodia, the capital of Cambodia. They were a communist regime that was supported by the North Vietnamese. Led by a man by the name of Pol Pot, their goal was to return Cambodia to the Middle Ages and create an agricultural utopia. However, this utopia came at a very high price. Pol Pot immediately isolated Cambodia from the rest of the world so that the outside world would not see the atrocities happening within his country. He started by targeting those with an education, believing them to be threats to his power. Teachers, lawyers, doctors, and anyone with a degree was sent to a prison camp. The most notorious of these camps is S-21, and this was the first place I visited in Cambodia. From the outside, it doesn't look like much. Just 3 buildings on a street corner surrounded by a concrete wall, and there's really only one sign that indicates that there's anything of significance behind this wall. However, as we approached the prison camp, the adults with me tried to warn me for what I was about to experience, assuring me that if it was ever too much, I could remove myself from the situation and there was no shame in it. I didn't believe them, but I should have. Within these 3 concrete buildings, there are rows and rows of classrooms, formerly places of learning for high school students just like myself. But in 1975, they were transformed into torture chambers. Here, men, women, and children of all ages experienced more evil than I could possibly imagine. I remember standing in a room, shaking uncontrollably as I looked at the 4 walls that surrounded me, every inch of them covered with pictures of beautiful faces, and each picture representing a victim of S-21 that has never been identified. In the 4 years that the Khmer Rouge was in power in Cambodia, over 25% of Cambodia's population was murdered, and most of these people had a degree of some kind, leaving Cambodia without any guidance. Over the next 5 days, I had the opportunity to meet and love on women from all around Cambodia, most of whom, at some point in their life, education had meant death. Pol Pot understood an essential truth, that education is power. And after my experience at S-21, I also came to believe this, as well as start to hold the belief that education is what would redeem Cambodia. The women that I met through my time there also shared this belief and all held the common dream of the re-education of their people. They were passionate and driven, unbending in their hope for their broken country. But one woman stood above the rest. Simone. Simone's vision and her passion is what brought hope to Cambodia. She fled Cambodia when the Khmer Rouge took power and was the only one of her family to survive. After dinner one night, I remember as she recounted to me and my traveling companions how she still wakes up in the middle of the night crying and screaming because of the night terror she still experiences. When she left Cambodia, she swore she would never come back. But it was the realization that through God, all things are possible that brought her back to Cambodia. Simone says that she believes that through Christ and through the education of young people, everything can change for Cambodia. She would often take my face in her hands, look at me in the eyes, and say, "We need more young people like you." But after my experience in Cambodia, I can't help but think we need more people like Simone. Because of my time spent with her, I had a renewed passion and a drive for the cause I was devoting my capstone for. I had faces and names, and these were the faces of the next generation of Cambodian youth who were going to rise up and change their country. All they needed was the tools to do so. We can provide those tools. We can train teachers and doctors and lawyers and help the transformation be fully realized. For Cambodia, education can and will bring redemption. The process has already begun. While I witnessed a lot of brokenness during my time in Asia, I also witnessed God fighting for his people. On our last day in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, we had the opportunity to tour a place called Agape International Missions that works in human trafficking prevention in Cambodia. Now, most people don't see the connection between education and human trafficking prevention, but it is undoubtedly there. Women who are educated can get jobs, and women who can get jobs do not have to fall into the trap of human trafficking. This connection became abundantly clear to me when I heard the story of a young woman Agape International had rescued. Her name was Toha. At the age of 14, Toha's family ran out of money. In order to make ends meet, her mother sold her daughter's virginity to an older man. When the older man was done with her, he sold her to a brothel. By some miracle, she was able to get the information of Agape International Missions and let them know where she was. Due to government red tape, she could not be rescued for 22 days. Brothels keep track of how many customers a girl has in order to know how much money to send home to her family. When Toha's brothel was raided, they found 198 tally marks beside her name. That's 198 customers in a mere 22 days. A minimum of 9 violent assaults per day. It's been 6 months since I got home from Cambodia, and I still cannot wrap my brain around the amount of strength it takes to overcome something like that. But Toha found that strength. She is now a part of the SWAT team that goes into brothels and rescues girls from the situations that they are in. And she often sleeps at the police stations with them as they're being processed so that they know they are not alone. When asked why she shares her story with others, she says it is because it is not just her story, but the story of thousands of women around the world. In fact, around 30,225,000 women and girls share her story. 30,225,000 daughters of Christ, masterpieces, beautifully and wonderfully created, who have been deemed worthless because of the evil of this world. None of these women are beyond our reach. In fact, Denver is a hotspot for human trafficking here in the United States, a fact that many residents of our city do not know. This is not just an international problem, but rather something that should hit home for all of us. When I got home from Asia, I found myself wondering if there was any connection between the prevalence of human trafficking within our state and our education system. In an effort to learn more about what education looks like within Colorado, I interviewed Representative Colin Larson, who serves on the Education Committee here in Colorado. His main issue that he ran on was education when he ran for representative, so he is very knowledgeable about this. As a private school attendee for all of my life, I never thought that education and the bills that were passed here in Colorado really applied to me. After all, I go to a private school. But actually, one of the main issues that we're talking about in education right now deeply affects us, and that is the issue of school choice. If you don't know what school choice is a term for K through 12 public education options in the United States, describing a wide array of programs offering students and their families alternatives to publicly provided education, which is generally assigned based on the family's residence. Now, although allowing a child to attend a school where they are going to receive the best education possible for them seems like a logical choice, it's actually quite a divisive issue. Many politicians within Colorado and on the federal level are adamantly opposed to school choice. They believe that it will undermine the public school system and cause it to fail. They genuinely think that they are helping teachers and advocating for education by opposing school choice. They have missed the full picture. When talking to Representative Larson about why school choice was important, he mentioned people who suffer because of the brokenness of our system. The first group of people he pointed to was low-income families. Often, if the neighborhood school is failing a student in a low-income family, they do not have the resources to move their child to another school. Therefore, grades fail and the student falls behind. The second group that he pointed to was kids who have been bullied. Kids who are bullied in their neighborhood school and do not have the option of school choice are forced to stay in that school. Whereas if they could change, their grades would get better as well as their psychological well-being. Yet for some reason, school choice continues to come down to a party vote. Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other. And amongst all the political talk, the student's voice is lost. We must face the facts. There are students in our schools here in Colorado that are not receiving the education that they should receive, and we, the voters, are a part of that problem. Is it any coincidence that the same state that has a prevalence of human trafficking within their borders also puts laws in place that prohibit students from getting the education that they should? No, it is not. I believe that it is the role of the government to help their people thrive. And part of this role is ensuring that students receive the education that they deserve. Simply put, our government is failing us. Much like in Cambodia, there is a generation rising here in Colorado that has the opportunity to change the world. This power cannot be fully realized if we continue to let students fall through the cracks. Education in our world is broken. It is not just an international problem, but a problem we have here at home. We are impairing the next generation, withholding their ability to learn to the best of their abilities. As Christians, we are God's ambassadors to this world. Revelations 21:5 says, "And he who was seated on the throne said, 'Behold, I am making all things new.'" It could not be more clear. Our God is a God of redemption. And for millions of people around the world, and people here in the United States, redemption takes the form of education. Through education, we can reach the exploited and abused and bring them hope and healing. Through education, we can reach the forgotten and those whose voices have been robbed and remind them of their value. Education can transform our world, and we as the church must find the courage to fight for those who have been denied the right to learn, because that's what Jesus would do. I'm so thankful for my grandmothers who taught me to love learning and who taught me to understand the power that I possess as a woman. They gave me the courage and the passion to fight for girls who do not have the same privileges as me, to fight for the girls who deserve an education because they are brilliant and beautiful and created in the image of God, and they deserve to excel. And because of this, they also taught me to dream big, because why not? So I dream that one day 100% of our world will receive the education that they deserve and be able to live their lives free from the threat of human trafficking. And I believe that one day this dream will come true, and I can only hope to be a small part of it.